Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the B&H Event Space. I am your host, as always, Derek Fassbender. I know I look a little different. I have a cold today, so that's the change in appearances for that reason. But I assure you, I am in fact Derek, and I'm coming to you as always from the B&H Event Space. So welcome to this edition with Bob Davis. Obviously, I am not Derek. My name is Pete Isgrig, and I'm with SanDisk and with Western Digital. And I am here to introduce Bob to you all and to give him this wonderful platform to tell you about his recent trip to Africa and how our products helped bring all those memories, all those photos, and all those creations home with him on that journey. So please throw in your comments in the chat if you have questions for Bob, if you have things you want to let him know. And as always, let us know where you're coming in from, because I love virtual events and I love to hear where in the globe everybody is from. So with that said, I will give it over to you, Bob. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
B&H, thanks for doing it. SanDisk, much appreciated. Yes, if you've never had a chance to go to Africa, I highly recommend going. This was my 10th trip. My wife and I have been going to Africa on and off, both for photographic safaris and for humanitarian aid work and documentary projects. So each time you go, you leave a little piece of your heart, because the hospitality, the food, the environment is also wonderful. And on this last trip, I've been a member of this workout organization called F3, and it's free for men. So it's a fitness thing for men. And there's a plant in Nairobi. So we got to do a workout with 70 guys in the Kibera slums in Nairobi before we kicked off our photographic safari. So that was quite an experience and a treat to do as well. So travel is an amazing gift. Anywhere you go, break bread with the locals, get off the tourist path and get to the authenticness of the country. I've never been one to like those tours where you see them holding up the flag, we're walking, we're going here, because I tend to get lost. I get lost in the moment. I get lost in experiencing culture. I get lost in communicating with people. My wife and I, Dawn, we've never let a language barrier get in the way. And today it's easier than ever because you have the translator built right into your phone. So it's an amazing tools, an amazing time to travel. And again, since we're kind of free, so to speak, since being sequestered in hibernation for a couple of years due to the pandemic, people are even more eager to travel. Everywhere we went, people were in such great spirits to be out and about. So with that, I'll give you kind of an overview of what we're going to do. Of course, I'm going to share a bunch of safari photos. I mean, we photographed a ton. We had 10 guests with us, so various ages, various skill levels. Some people only used their phones. There were a handful, it was about 50% hardcore, so about 5 hardcore photographers there with, you know, your big 600mm lenses and whatnot. And then other people were just using phones. The key is having excellent guides wherever you go, because they know the environment, they know the animals, and they can get you safely within a close range to capture some amazing photographs. And while you're there, you're going to be shooting a ton. So if you can't bring a lot of memory cards, you need to bring a solution for downloading. So we're going to touch on in the field workflow and backing up. And also not only because of backing up your cameras, but we gave one of these devices, will it focus? Let me see if I can get my camera to focus, but it's there it is, the SanDisk little jump drive that works both USB-C and or Lightning, because we knew people were going to be off grid, so to speak. So you can't just shoot a bunch on your phone and rely on the cloud to upload it, because you're in the middle of the Mara, or you might be in the middle of the Serengeti where you don't have good connectivity, or you don't want to be using your data rate because it could get extremely costly. And the Wi-Fi in the camps that we're in is very slow for trying to upload data. So these were really handy for guests to have to back up their phones. So that was wonderful to have. So with that, I'm going to kind of just switch to another camera and give you a bit of an overview. Turn this camera on, and I'm going to power up the light so you could see what we're going to be doing in terms of everything we used, both here in the studio and then while in the field. Just getting the lights on. Of course, everything is black. All right, so here we go. So here's what I do in the field. I have my laptop, brought my laptop. A couple of people brought iPads, but you know, I want to make sure everything I could back up. So I'm using my MacBook Pro. In the field, I used the SanDisk card readers. So they plug in via USB-C, and I took 2 with me. And what's nice about these is you could get them for CF Express, you could get them for whatever media you're going to be downloading, SD cards, and they're stackable. So I brought 2 because I primarily photograph with 2 cameras, and I could download my CF Express cards right to a hard drive in the field. So in the field, I was using these little portable drives. This is an SSD 4 terabyte, and I have an older 2 terabyte. But what I brought was the 4 terabyte, and then I brought the SanDisk Professional Blade, which is nice. Let me set this camera down, is because I really believe that this is going to be the future of storage, because you can get 16 terabytes or more in your little docking station back in your studio from these blades. So this is 2 terabytes of data, which is quick, convenient. In the field, it's fast. I could download to it USB-C. And then when I get back here in our studio, I'm going to take this blade. There we go. I'm going to put it in the docking station. So it has 4 slots. And these blades come in various sizes. So Pete can elaborate on that. This is a 2 terabyte, but I believe they go up to 4 to 6 in range.
1, 2, and 4 terabytes.
1, 2, and 4. Okay.
We don't have anything higher than 4 yet. We haven't
Yet.
quite cracked the heat management in
Okay.
anything above 4 terabytes. So it's still going to be a while before you see portables in 4 terabyte or higher than
But
4.
look how much storage you could get in one portable device. And here's a great thing back in the studio too, is the dock. So come on, focus on the dock. There we go. And this docking station is also a hub. So I could plug in external hard drives. I could plug in my Ethernet for my laptop. And then when we get back, I always re-download everything just to make sure I don't miss anything. These card readers go in. Right, so we're going to start with workflow, and then we're going to get to the images. So what is outstanding about this is using, let's see, is this a better view? Yeah. So let me just get this down low. Using a program like Photomechanic. Photomechanic I use first and foremost because it allows you to download cards simultaneously. So we're going to secure this. And I just had a big session yesterday with a client. So we were running 2 remote cameras, 2 live cameras. So of course, I'm coming back with 4 cards, 4 CF Express cards. So I can load them up into my card reader. And I'll be able to, very important, caption, keyword, all of that, copyright, all of this information. So I'm going to switch cameras again and see, can you throw it to me so I could share my desktop? Is that possible? Can I screen share? I just click the button, I guess. Yep, there we go. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to flip over here, screen 2, and share it. And if anybody has any questions along the way, please pop in. So this is a workflow, like all workflows, they're personal. And you have to go with what works for you. Still getting a beach ball. See when it pops up to share. Not coming up yet. There we go. Should be. Okay, should have my screen. Pete, can you see it?
Yep.
All right. Get this out of the way. So Photomechanic, again, I've been using it since my days as a photojournalist at the forefront of digital. Photomechanic is amazing for bringing images into your computer, tagging them, moving them. If you're on deadline, you can email, you can FTP, you could do anything, but it does not edit the images. So it's basically cataloging, sorting, tagging, rating. But what is very important and valuable for me or any photographer is this information here, the IPTC metadata information. So yesterday's event, I put all this in live because all of this gets embedded into every image. So you might think, well, why do that? Well, for one, it allows you to get this information onto every file so nothing becomes orphaned. And two, there are people that do take images off the internet and claim them as their own and put them on their own website. This protects you because it's embedded. Everything can be read within this first caption field. So even when we're working with multiple photographers on an event, we put their information in here as well. So yesterday was a birthday celebration. Right, I'm not going to run through the whole thing here, but just to give you an idea of how this will work. So we'll take this information, we'll put it in all the pertinent fields as to where it's at, and you fill all this information out. And there is stickiness to it. What I mean by stickiness is you can put multiple things in here and save them. So if I'm working with multiple photographers, I can list their names in here, and I could list their affiliation with it, and we can list our copyrights and who to credit, all this information, what kind of file. So this goes back to journalism days and AP, what your events are going to be, mandatory credit. And I did this even while I was in the field. So that's good. That's all there. Good, good, good. And then when we hit close, you can see all 4 of my cards are highlighted from the card reader. Now it's going to ask, where do I want them to go? Okay, so I'm going to go to any hard drive, and I could point it to 2 hard drives if I wanted to. Remember, if you do it to 2 hard drives, it will just slightly slow down the ingest speed. And what's really nice about this is it also does a verification process. So I'll show you in 1 second. We're going to create a new folder, title it the same. And then within this folder, I'm going to add another folder and add all raw, because we'll go through those and then cull and edits and all those sorts of things. So now this is coming in live, 4 cards simultaneously. Now you could actually, once this starts the process of bringing them in, there you go. It's bringing these images in live. This is the live ingest. We could start tagging them and noting our favorites, anything like that, right? So it's a great tool.
I just want to jump in and point out that Pro Doc that you were ingesting all 4 cards, and of course you're using the CF Express, 4CF Express, which kind of defeats the point, what I'm about to say. But the big advantage with that doc is all 4 of those card readers can ingest without a speed bottleneck. And the only hiccup I have to say is if you're using 4CF Express cards, because those are actually significantly faster than the rest of the cards. So there will be a small bottleneck there. But after, if you're ingesting large amounts of data and it's taking 20, 30 minutes of use, those CF Express cards are going to throttle down, and then you won't see any bottleneck anymore. So there will be an initial bottleneck, but if you're using we make it with SD cards, with CFast cards, with RED cards, and micro SD. And so if you're using those or any combination of the 4, you won't see any speed bottlenecks when you're ingesting these cards, except in this specific use case, Bob, where you have 4 CF Express cards in the initial burst.
Right. But it's still fast.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. You get the Thunderbolt 3 speed, so you'll get 3,000 megabytes per second out of
And the
it.
reason I use Photomechanic first, I know a lot of people say, why not just go right into Lightroom, is again, speed. I want to be able to get the images in, get every one of them captioned, keyword, and copyrighted, and then I'll start the call process. Now, Photomechanic will match the stars and color ratings of Lightroom. So once it's done, I can quickly call an event in an hour or 2 at max. And then I take those favorites or the edit ins into Lightroom. And again, the reason for that is if you brought these thousands of photographs into Lightroom, it's a big bottleneck, because on the back end, Lightroom has to then take the JPEG preview of the raw file and build a DNG file that you can edit and make adjustments to it. So that whole process slows down. So when you're trying to select your favorites, it's click and 1, click and 2. It takes it a second to go to the next frame. So here's some images from Africa, and you could see how rapidly, we've got an ingest going in the background, but still I could run this fast through the images, and it would be even faster once the ingest process in the background is done. So you could see, here's what's being ingested. We get a live dialogue, and we get all the information. So I could be calling and editing another project, right, for workflow. So it's an amazing process, and it speeds things up. For me, everything is about speed and efficiency. So I could go in here and select the few that I've already favorited as red, right? These are going to be like my favorites. And we could now either take these, import them into Lightroom, or edit them directly, right? So an image like this, we could just launch it. It's a favorite, and it will take it right to Photoshop. Or if we like it just the way it is, we could take the JPEG preview, which is embedded in each file, and bring it to social media. We could email it. We could do whatever we want with these images from Photomechanic. Now, once my call and tagging process is done, then we live in the Lightroom catalog that's created. So let me pop this over. And also running Zoom slows it down in the process. So I'm going to pull this Photoshop screen if I could. Or let me switch screens. That would probably be easier. So I'm going to stop the share, and we're going to switch it back to Zoom. There we go. And we'll share desktop 1. It just takes a second to port over. Again, I'm pushing my laptop with all the connectivity. So the ingest is just about complete, and then the computer will pick up from there. Come on, minimize. Being a little slow. Any questions while we're going through these little technical hiccups here?
I haven't seen any questions come through yet.
All right, let me shut down a couple apps in the background. Just speed things up a little bit more. There we go. So here's the image that I tagged really quickly within Photomechanic. Now from here, you can do anything you want with it, right? So this was in Africa just days ago. So we got back from Africa. I came in Wednesday because I had an event on Saturday, and I didn't want to just jeopardize the event at all by missing a flight delay, anything like that. So I came back a little bit earlier, and my wife Dawn stayed with a few other guests that were going for an extension. So they stayed and they went for a balloon ride. Come on, get rid of Photomechanic. Come on, quit Photoshop because it's a beast. We'll just stick with Photomechanic here. So the entire workflow process, and here on my desktop, you could see those 4 cards. They're coming in. I have multiple drives that I could write to. Currently, I'm keeping everything in the same spot within, for my safari, within the, come on, 2 terabyte SSD drive. And then when I was in the field, I backed it up to the ProBlade 2 terabyte, which is essentially a mirror, so that we had everything still on the cards and still on 2 hard drives, because this is a trip of a lifetime. I mean, we witnessed a lot of behaviors that I hadn't seen before. And the goal was to document and photograph these guys, super tusker elephants, of which there are less than 30 mature adults, males, left in the world. So the goal was to tell that story and get it out on our social media to help raise funds and raise awareness. Come on, it's being a little bit jerky here. Let me get to this elephant right here. And this was a young, oh, wrong screen. Come on, move it over. There we go. So this was a young elephant, others in the background. So this is a junior, immature super tusker. So we were in Amboseli National Park. So most of the super tuskers range from Amboseli to Tsavo East and Tsavo West. There are 2 or 3 super tuskers in South Africa, but the majority of them roam between Tanzania and Kenya. So it's really important that through our photographs, through our guests, through our storytelling, that we can raise awareness and raise funds to keep these animals protected so that they don't go extinct, at least in our lifetime, and they hopefully will proliferate. So this was a beautiful scene in a marsh. Being prepared, you know, that's the main thing when you're on safari is good guides. They're going to get you in the region, in the vicinity of where the wildlife is. Then, to quote Sam Abel, former National Geographic photographer and Canon Explorer of Light, one of my photo mentors, is you compose the picture and wait. So we're in these Toyota Land Cruisers, the tops pop open, and you get bean bags around the top. So your guide will be on the radio and they say, well, they've spotted cheetahs a quarter mile from here. And this is the wide open plains area, because cheetahs love the wide open spaces because they need to be able to run straight. They can't cut through the brush. They can't turn left and right. They're very good hunters at flat out open spaces in a straight line. And they look for elevation to get above to see their prey coming. So this was the EOS R3. And I was at ISO 1600. Another thing you got to get over is being afraid of the ISO, the power of the ISO. The cameras today could virtually shoot clean at just about any ISO. And the reason I'm at 2500, I'm sorry, at 1600 ISO is because I want a fast shutter speed of 2500th of a second to 4000th of a second in case this cheetah decides to sprint. So I want to be ready for that. And at the aperture I was at, aperture 10, because this was the 100 to 500, and I had the 1.4 extender in there. So that's where maximum wide open aperture is 10. So those are the sets of things, but you expose properly and the quality is there. There is no noise here, right? Here's 100% zoom in. So after seeing these cheetahs approaching, you realize they're not going to do anything fast, because look how swollen their bellies are. So they've recently eaten. So these are 2 brother cheetahs, and I'll show you another photograph here in a second. 2 brother cheetahs that were on the hunt. Their bellies are chock full. So we did see some warthogs in the distance that kind of caught their attention, but they decided, you know what, we're full, we're satiated. It's not worth the energy expenditure, or could we run that fast because our bellies are full? So here's one of my favorite photographs of the trip. Again, all these images were backed up in the field. Let's get a full frame. In this, I believe is a lower res, because I took it right from camera and I had a good cell signal, and I put it right up on Facebook. So I connected my EOS R3 right to my phone and pushed it right up to Facebook while we were minutes after I took this photograph, while we were still in the plains of Amboseli. So again, you could see these cheetahs coming from the background. And if you study animal behavior, you'll know they're going to want to get high. They're going to mark the territory. So that's exactly what they did. I'm talking to the group in our vehicle. I'm like, okay, focus on the tree. They're going to come to the tree. They're going to scratch on it. One of them is going to go up into the branches. One of them is going to urinate on it because they're marking their territory. And that's exactly the behavior that we witnessed and saw. So it was amazing to see this at first light as storm clouds were going in the background. So it was great to have this dark sky and golden sunlight coming. So these were all pushed, all these photographs here, and I'm going to share with you, were all taken, we'll call it live, and pushed from my R5, R3 to my phone, and then right out. So again, these are some tuskers, and I'll show you the high res here in a moment. And this is a marshland. And then this is more of an arid desert-like area where I have some excellent 4K video of this. Again, I haven't gone through anything. We just downloaded these in the field. And as I said, I've had events. I had a wedding, I had a birthday celebration. I'm preparing for a 3-day event in Arizona. So this workflow ties into everything because I got to download my cards and I got to make sure all the images are secure and backed up. But anyways, yes, seeing these elephants coming at the distance with the heat shimmer. I believe this was with, what's the focal length on my lens here? Oh, this was the 100 to 500. But I do have some footage of them coming with my 600 with a 2X. So it's 1200 millimeters. And you can really see that heat shimmer coming across the plains. It's just amazing to see it in video. But the goal, again, while you're here, is to not just see the elephants, but to observe, hang out, witness their behavior. You know, you see the babies intertwined and being protected by the matriarchs. The way elephants herd together is this entire grouping will be all females or immature male boys, and then they'll have bull elephants on the outskirts of it. And the bulls, the big males, only get to come into the herd when the matriarch, the head female, says it's okay, and that one of the females within the herd is in estrus and ready to mate. So the matriarch is really the lead. And what I was intrigued by is, again, these are tusker DNA. So their tusks are going to grow their entire life. Was this fella here, I don't know if it's male or female, but had already broken one tusk somehow, probably in a sparring match with an older bull. Now here's a matriarch. She separated off to the side from the herd a little bit to allow the calf to nurse. So you can see she has an older calf with her and a very young calf, where that one, the little one on the side, is probably about 3-4 months old. And they stick together, and they took a break from the entire herd so that the little one could have an opportunity to nurse. But I love witnessing the behaviors in the wild. There's nothing else like it. Elephants, in my opinion, they kind of are the true king of the jungle, because where they go, even the lions will yield to them. And, you know, the movie The Lion King got so much right when you're there. You can actually see the correlation. Zazu is a hornbill. Pumbaa really does mean warthog. You know, all the names were correct and the behaviors and everything was really well
So
done.
the lions really do hold up their babies on top of
They
rocks?
really do. They'll take their baby,
Wow. I hope you got a
not with
photo
2
of
paws
that.
and stand up, but they will present them to the pride. In fact, I have a image that I'll pull up. Let me see if I can get to it right here. So this is at last, oh, wrong frame. This is actually at last light, and this is an elevated rock. Again, I'll get the high res. These are ones I took right from the camera. And the little cub came up to mom. She roared, and this is on an elevated rock.
Wow.
And the other females in the pride were about 8 feet below. So let me jump over to the high res. And let me make sure the ingest process is done so we can, or I'll kill it. Come on, window, pop. There we go. Bring it up. Where's the window? There we go. Yeah, one last card anyways is coming in. So in all this time we've been talking, it's been bringing them in. Again, Photomechanic, what's nice about it is if there were any errors or downloading, this would be a red box. And in the dialog here, it would give you the exact files that were either corrupt or did not download properly. And you could go to your card to that exact file and download them one at a time. Oftentimes the file is not corrupt on the camera. It just could be a data streaming process. It could be the card reader or anything like that. And very, very rarely does it happen. But it's nice that you get these dialog boxes to let you know. So,
Bob, we have a few questions along the
Yeah.
same lines of how do you manage the limitations of what you can carry and zoom versus wide angle shots, and
sure.
what gear you can bring on smaller flights based on weight restrictions and baggage restrictions, et cetera. What's like the key things to bring?
Good question. Let me see if I have the photo here. Let me close that one tab. I did. I closed that tab. I'll close this tab just so I could keep as much resources. And I'll explain that. Great question. So first off is your limitation on what you could travel with. So what I've done over the period of time is I take a photograph of my bag on every aircraft. So internationally, you're going to go on a big jet. So this is an Airbus A350. Here's my backpack. And this has got everything in it. And we could put in the link on my Facebook, I posted how I packed this backpack and exactly what's in it. Now I'll explain here too as well. But I have these detachable wheels that I put on it so that going through the airport, I just wheel this bag. It does weigh 42 pounds with all my cameras and my laptop. And you have to carry on your external batteries because you can't check those. But it all fits in the overhead. I have photographs of this backpack on regional jets as well. So thereby, I'm not going to argue with a flight attendant who says it's not going to fit. I just say, oh, would you mind looking at my file here? I have a photograph of this backpack on every airplane I've flown on, regional jets included. So that's really helpful. And if you're kind and courteous, then it goes a long way. So let's see. I'm going to stop the screen share, right? Stop sharing so you can see me again. Okay, so here's the backpack, right? It's a think tank. There's other backpacks, but the reason I like this is I could fit everything I need in this backpack and it's comfortable. It has a computer sleeve in the front. The backside opens up and you could get 3 bodies in here, 600 millimeter, everything. So here's the gear that fits in there. The laptop, which you saw, and let me get this, I think I got a faulty cable here. Just switch the cables really quick. So we'll go back to this one. All right. So here's my 600, right? So this 600 was in that backpack with an R3. The R3s are my primary cameras for wildlife. I always bring the 600 because it's an F4. So we're going to be shooting at pre-dawn light. And we're going to be shooting at last light of the day. So I want the F4. I would say the majority of everything I photographed was with this other R3 with the 100 to 500 and the 1.4 extender. The reason I love it is because it's lightweight, handheld, and we can move anywhere within the vehicle really easy. With the 600, while we didn't have tripods and gimbals, we did have a rim around the vehicle where we could place bean bags and rest it. So when I wanted those super close-up images, I would put a 2x extender on this, and I'd be able to get that tight face shot, or I'd be able to get in on a behavior that might be going off into the bush to bring that in closer. So my core kit is 3 camera bodies, the other one being my R5 right here with a 24-105. So that's my basic go-to. I don't need anything wider than 24 millimeters, because if I want to do a super wide photograph, you could do a panoramic photograph. So just like you take your iPhone and hold it in a panoramic manner and move left to right, you can photograph a little bit wider, turn the level on in your viewfinders, keep level, and click, 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 allowing at least 50% overlap if you're hand holding it. And then Lightroom and Photoshop are so great at doing panoramic stitch and pan. You could even do HDR stitch and pan, and it will assemble all of those images together. So therefore, I don't feel like I need to carry the 16-35 or 11-24 or anything like that. So I don't have anything faster than Aperture 4. I'm not afraid to bringing that ISO high, because the cameras today and software allow you to get such an amazing clean file. And something that I've always said since my film days is, if people are seeing the grain and the noise, then the content in the photograph is not compelling enough to get past that, right? You've never seen an historic photograph or a Pulitzer Prize winning photograph and people say, oh, look at the noise from that Tri-X film. No, it's the impact of that moment. And that's what we're going for, behavior and impact. So I'm going to switch back over here. And where was I going? Sharing, oh, cards. So you want to have something to always keep your cards safe and secure. Any type of Pixel wallet is fine. So what I do, so I know, is if my cards are in upside down, that means they've been shot. I've used them. If they are in there right side up, so we could read SanDisk, then I know they're fresh and ready to go. Always format your cards before you go into the field, because the last thing you want to do is pop a card in and see that there's data on it, and then you have to wonder, did I download that or not? So it's very efficient to do all your prep work ahead of time. So I time sync all my camera bodies. By time syncing, now we could go download, ingest, and edit all of our photographs chronologically, so the clock matches on all of them. When I got to Nairobi, I set the clocks right in camera to Nairobi. Therefore, we're in true time. You don't have to do that, but at least we're in the exact real time. So all this foundation stuff leads to a better back-end workflow, and it prepares you to be ready for the moments in the field. So if you don't mind, I'm going to pop in this cable and I'm going to share my desktop, if we have time, to talk about the technology that's at your disposal. So I'm going to pop this in and fire this camera up. And I'm just going to share with you the basic setup for wildlife. And I, again, set all my cameras up identically so that we don't have any issues. So all the buttons, remember these cameras today, you could totally customize each and every button to your liking and to your needs. So they are all set up the same for me, so that when I pick it up, whether it's the R5 or the R3, I don't have to worry, what does the AF button do? What does the depth of field button do? They're all programmed identically. So let me come over here and grab the desktop again. Desktop one, share. Good. And see if I could get this to launch. What I want to do is to show you right through my viewfinder. All right, applications, Canon, on how to set up your tracking and how well it works and when is it going to fail. Not that one. I just did an update. Utility. Okay. Let me reboot this. It doesn't want to see it, does it? Of course not. All right, that's okay. I've got a backup plan. Remember, always be prepared. All right, so I'll quit that. So what I did while I was in Africa is I used a Ninja external monitor. I think it's just because everything is running so slow. Here we go, Ninja monitor. So that I could exactly do this. So this is exactly how I would see things and set things up in the field. It was the end of the night. Oh, don't need any sound. Where are we at here? Next frame. So what's nice about using the Ninja Recorder is I could roll video simultaneously to shooting stills. And this is going to give you the view through my viewfinder. So what I do when I'm in the field is I try and get near perfect color in camera, check my histogram. I dial everything in manually, same light, same exposure. This way here, if I swing my camera up to the sky, if I'm in any type of auto setting, auto ISO, anything like that, it's going to make the picture darker. So I want consistency on the back end. So I set everything manual from color to ISO to aperture to shutter speed. Same light, same exposure. Where are we at here? So here's the Tusker. I had the picture style on my camera in black and white while still shooting raw. We still have all of the color information. But as you can see, again, we have equal length in our red, green, and blue channels in the field. So that's telling me that we have good neutral color. Nothing's too warm, nothing's too cool. I am pushing the exposure slightly to the right because we have lots of shadow information in here. And I want to make sure we have detail there. If you underexpose and brighten later, at least with canning, you're going to introduce noise because the left side is zero. So zero information is zero information. So if you try and brighten those shadows where there isn't information, that's where noise comes from. So as long as I have detail in my shadows, I don't care what ISO I'm going to photograph at to get the shot because we're going to have details in the shadow. So here's the scenario. I'm choosing my focus point because again, the animal's rump is facing us. So face head eye detection isn't going to work. The way face head eye detection autofocus works in general is off of light and contrast with deep learning. So if it can't find a face, it's going to look for the next best thing that is sharp, nice highlight, and contrast that it could grab onto. So in this scenario, we had some heat shimmer and things. It kept focusing over here on the ground. So that's why I took over. I chose my focus mark and I placed it right on the elephant. So you could see here's the active focus point. I can move it around. I can recompose. When you see the blink, that's me actually taking a photograph. This is one of the oldest super tuskers left on the planet. This is Craig. He's 58 years old. He's toward the end of his natural life. He can live up to 60. 60 is really pushing it, 62. But his teeth are ground down. He has to eat a lot of soft food. He moves kind of slow. He is very well monitored, and they do well-being checks on him. They will dart him every now and then, but he's been left alone. We get all this information from the Savo Trust and from the Amboseli Trust. He's been left alone for the past year. He's just aging well. He's living his best life. And that's the goal, for these animals to live out their natural life and pass of old age. And he's a big old bull that commands great respect wherever he goes. Again, just like in The Lion King, the animals seem to bow to him, seem to give him his way and let him, mosey on through. Here's my live histogram. So you saw that. I could back that up just a bit. You saw that the red, green, and blue channels are equal. So I know in my color information, we're going to have very neutral color, and it's going to reproduce really well. We did get some great front shots of him, albeit not as good as I would hope for. I'm greedy. I would want more. I would love to get him closer to us. I believe this was with a 1200 millimeter lens. So we're getting a little bit of distortion, from the heat shimmer, but he is where he is, right? I can't command him to come over to us, and we have to stay respectful with our distance, and we have to remain what you would call on track. In any national park, you're going to be on track. And what that means is you can't go off road to get closer to the animal. In a national park where anybody could buy a ticket and go and drive through in their own vehicle, that's most beneficial and protective for the wildlife. We have done safaris on private reserves, which are privately owned, and the animals are free. There's no fences. They come and go as they please. There you have a different level of guide that knows the wildlife, knows the animals, and treats them with the utmost respect, but it would allow us to get within, 50, 75 yards of him at a safe distance. So this is nice to be able to get 4K video of Craig while I was also photographing still images. Those blinks and the focus marks, you could see I was changing from where I selected a focus point to face, head, eye detection and active tracking. And video, of course, picks up every bit of motion and movement. And I'm using the bean bag on the top of the vehicle to steady it. Now, when you're shooting 4K video for a film, which I did a lot of, you want to keep your actual shutter speed to at max 2 times your frame rate. So if I was shooting at 30 frames per second, my max shutter speed would be 60 to 1/125th of a second, so that we get this pleasing motion view. So when you create your film, it's not staccato and it flows, and the motion flows with the way we're accustomed to seeing it. But that's what the view is right through my viewfinder. Here are elephants in the distance coming to us, and they're actually going to the marshlands. So you can see I'm going to go through, check my color balance. Here it's much cooler because it was a cooler day and I didn't want to artificially warm it up too much. Again, being raw in our file format, we could go in and edit that to our heart's content, but I try and get things right in camera. White balance bracket adjust, I'll use that sometimes if we're photographing in the trees in the shade, and we'll just add a little bit of magenta to kind of counteract all the green. There you go. I had never seen elephants in a marsh before. So there are some areas of the wetlands where the elephants will get chest deep in the water. So let me pop back over to Amboseli. So here are some, let's see, those are the favorites. I'm going to go to all images instead of the quick selections. So we'll get to that high res series of the cheetah. So here you can see the behavior is we saw them way off in the distance here coming. And of course, our guide is telling this, and me being to Africa many times and studying the behavior of cheetahs and lions and things ahead of time, you know they're going to look for that high ground. They're interacting, they're marking their territory, both by rubbing and by urinating. And look at those bellies, they're chock full. So they had recently eaten. So we weren't going to witness them chasing anything down this morning. But just incredible. And I love witnessing and seeing this behavior. So you could see with the high res file, plenty of sharpness, plenty of information. And I was using the R3 with the 100 to 500. I also had the 600 with the 1.4 all set up and ready to go. So not only was I photographing still images, but I was also photographing video. Just toggle back and forth between the two. So that's nice, is you can also just run it quickly. Most beautiful bird I've seen, it's the starling. That's in the superb starling that's in Kenya, in East Africa. Not a great angle. But again, none of these images have been edited. They're all completely raw, downloaded, backed up in the field.
Bob, are you shooting a lot of these in burst mode, or are you
Looking
doing
for
individuals?
interactions and behavior, the egrets, which are symbiotic with them, also looking for a high vantage point, and also picking off insects and parasites that land on the elephants. Here we are, just changing the white balance. I was doing a little lesson while we were in the vehicle to say, hey, if you want to do day to night or to really change the look of your image, that's the power of color temperature and using Kelvin instead of a preset. So here our Kelvin is 6,000 degrees. So it's very warm, a little bit on the warm side, but showing that afternoon sunlight, looking really good. But then I said, what if we underexpose it slightly and drop the Kelvin down to 3,100, 2,900 degrees? So it starts looking like old Hollywood cowboy movies where they do the day to night, just trying to provide options, because when you're sitting there witnessing their behavior for a while, then you could play. And notice too, the water line on the elephants. So this demarcation is they had just come from the wetlands where they were munching on the soft shoots of the grasses that were growing in the wetlands. So you can see they get pretty deep into the water. Here's some wildebeest crossing at Lake Nakuru. And you may ask, why is that photograph upside down? Well, I'll tell you why. Part of my goal is to elevate the animal. When you're photographing from a vehicle, you're almost always above the animal looking down on them. And I want to change up my point of view. I don't want everything looking the same. So what I did is I used my monopod and I hung the camera upside down, activated the live view so that I could see it, and I used an electronic cable release to take the shot. So this elephant went right between our vehicles to cross the road. Again, same thing with this bird. The elephant was going to this marsh. This bird is, I'm got the point of view now of ground level, eye level with the bird. So by doing that, I was able to hang the 100 to 500 outside the vehicle on the monopod with the face head eye tracking, and boom, getting this different point of view. So it just is just going to distinguish me from everybody else, because we don't want our pictures looking like everybody else's. So I wanted to get that ground level point of view. When you're in a national park, you're not allowed out of the vehicle. So the only way to get this is either with a camera trap or putting the camera on the ground using a platypod and firing it with a Pocket Wizard remote, or hanging out the window as I've done with the monopod. So couldn't resist. While we were at this marsh right here, all of a sudden you hear the grunting and groaning, and you look up the levee, and there is a hippo that was coming out and crossing the levee to get to the other side. So here's other safari vehicles on the levee between the wetlands, and they're Toyota Land Cruisers with a top that opens up. So you can see everybody's usually shooting down on the animal on that elevated platform view. But this is the view that I want to get. So again, hanging the camera out the window, or myself hanging out the window. I got long arms and getting that different point of view. So once we go through, I'll open this area up, bring the sky down, and it's going to look amazing. So Pete, how we doing? Questions, time, anything?
We
particular?
are, we're
All
good
doing
on
good?
time. If
Thumbs
you,
up?
can you hear me, Bob?
Uh-oh. Are you still there, Pete? Are we frozen?
I think you
Oh,
can't
I
hear.
can't hear you, Pete. I see your lips moving. Give
Is it me?
me a wave, thumbs up if it's all good. Okay, gotcha. So animal behavior. Now, you don't have to travel to Africa to get great bird photography, to get animal photography, to get wildlife. There's plenty of wildlife in your own backyard. Literally, your own backyard. You could put a bird feeder up. You could attract birds. You could go to your local forest preserve. You could get the report if you get on the Audubon Society. Right now is migration season. A lot of birds and things are migrating. So it's great to get out into your own backyard. Playing with point of view and exposure. Wanted to create a high key mirror-like image. And again, I'm looking for that behavior and gesture. I'm just not going to shoot the static bird standing on one leg in the field. So I did a bracket of 5 shots here quickly. So when you push the shutter, it clicks off 5 frames under, right on, and over, so that I could decide later. What I was going for was the cloud reflection in the pond. And I'll go in and I'll retouch all the feathers out for a final image. So here's kind of a goal, to get that behavior, to get that mirror image, and to pick the exposure. So I'm sure everybody's favorite, let's get to some big cats, the predators. Elephants coming in from the distance. Here you could see that distortion, and that literally is the heat shimmer from the field. So whenever you use a super telephoto lens, the air may be cool, the ground may be warm. You have to be careful. It's not your camera. If the images look slightly out of focus, that's called atmospheric interference. In that case, you getting elevated or less magnification will eliminate that. So this is a 1200 millimeter lens, and it's going to pick up a lot of atmosphere going across the field. As they got closer, that heat shimmer dissipated because I went to a shorter lens. By the time I was just using the 600 or a 200 millimeter lens, we could really convey how hot, dry, and dusty it was in this area of Amboseli. For me, while I was in the field, I felt black and white really spoke to the starkness and the look and feel of this. But again, I retain all the color information because it is raw. Zoom past. So I've shot 12,572 images, plus video, plus audio. And then my wife, Dawn, she was photographing with the new Canon R10, which she's been loving more than her iPhone because it's lightweight. And mirrorless is a game changer. So here would have been a spot had we been able to, again, we had to respect the rules of the national park. I would have placed a ground camera right here, and a ground camera would get a different point of view. Oh, speaking of, let's go here. Time lapse. Oh, come on. Oh, I output it. 1 second. Let me find it. Come on. Oh, I just had it. confusing myself. So let's do this. File, open recent. Come on, computer. We took a bush plane. We started off in Nairobi. Here we go. Went from Nairobi to Lake Nakuru to Lake Navashab. Where's my time lapse? Oh, here's a video that Dawn took of me hanging the camera out of the vehicle as this juvenile tusker crossed the road. It just elevates the animal and gets a different position. And here is a photograph from that low angle position. Where is my time lapse? I got to show you this time lapse. Oh. Time lapse, time lapse, time lapse. I don't know what's going on, but things aren't where they're supposed to be. Oh, here we go. So this is in a hide. Make sure this is the right one. Yeah. So this is one of our camps. This is a hide. And what a hide is, it's a built-in blind that is at the water hole. Oh, come on. And I let the camera run, and we are at water level. And you see the zebras are being very cautious. They're a little bit skittish to approach until the elephants come in and drink to their heart's content and say it's all clear. And this is what I would have loved to have done at the other water hole that we saw, is place a ground camera. We are physically in a blind at water level, which is an old shipping container that's done up really well. It's soundproof, it has windows, and allows you access to see this kind of behavior. So the blind is just amazing. Here's one, just a time lapse while we were waiting. Come on. And just to get the progression of the sky. And this is done on the iPhone. It's super convenient to do it on your iPhone. So that allowed me to still have my mirrorless cameras ready in case animals came up. Now, zebra and everything were all on the peripheral, just waiting to see if it was okay to come and drink. And again, nothing else came until the elephants kind of came and gave the all clear. Pop back over here. So here's lion doing an evening patrol. And they did see off in the distance, we thought we were going to witness a hunt, but this lion did see some Pumbaa. And they call the name Pumbaa in Swahili literally means dumb or stupid. And the reason they call warthogs dumb and stupid is because they'll be running flat out, being pursued by a lion, and forget while they're running what they were running from. They stop, turn around and look, and then boom, that's when they get captured. So they literally call them stupid animals because they forget what they're running from. Here's our group. We're in an opportunity, and this is where we were watching the big cats and watching some wildebeest behavior, some grooming behavior. Here is a video of a tusker along the side of our vehicle. Again, they want to get from one side of the road to the other, and we're in their neighborhood. So as long as the animal is not exhibiting any stressful behavior or any aggressive behavior, the guides will just remain still. Now, if this elephant was aggravated with us, it would be flapping its ears, it would be stomping the ground, it would be swaying its head left and right, saying, hey, you're too close, get out of the way. And by working with very good guides, we would have moved long before the elephant came this close, had it exhibited any type of aggressive behavior that we were in any way making it uncomfortable.
Hey, Bob, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so keep their computer speakers off mute there. I think you were not able to hear us earlier.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, is my speakers? Oh, yes. Okay. That would be why. Good tip. Yeah, here's again, get an idea of the vehicles that we're in. Everybody had their own seat, so you had 4 to 6 people per vehicle. Sandbags around the top. Top opened up, full windows on the bottom, so everybody had a great view. Here's a Stitch and Quick handheld stitch and pan. That was Craig. Again, he didn't cooperate and give us his face, but that's him walking away. Again, the oldest living Super Tusker on the planet. And here's that elephant in the marshlands. So what they would do is they would use their tusks to dig up the greenery and get to the tender roots and shoots, and then they'd flip their trunk over their tusks so that they could have wide open mouth access to munch on the green food. Beautiful females. Oh, the high res. Yeah, we got to get to the high res of that. So if there's any question about settings, anything, hit me up while we're here. So here, this is crazy last light. This is 6:45 at night. So sun set there at 6:15. So it's already set. We're at ISO 25,600. So kept shooting. And this is where the 600 f4 came in at 100 f4. So I thought I was going to witness some behavior. You know, this mama had to hunt to feed the cubs. So I was going to get to, all right, here's always nice when you can get it within the same frame. So the warthog and the lion. And again, if the lions weren't satiated, meaning they were full, this warthog would have had a big challenge on its hands. But they just hang out. So that's why they call him Pumbaa, dumb animal. Let's see. Let me get to the, oh, that was last night we were there. Here are 2 females up on top. And we stayed on them for quite a while, up on top of a termite mound. And this is where also the cub the night before went up, you know, and kind of did the whole presentation thing, like, this is my cub. And all the other females were surrounding the bottom of the termite mine going, ooh, oh, oh. So again, very low light, 6400 ISO, you know, just that last light. Lions become most active nocturnal at night. And when we were there, we had a bright full moon. So lions were going to do their hunting at night. Cheetahs hunt in the day. Leopards, they'll hunt first thing in the morning. But lions do all their hunting at night. Love that gesture. The paws are coming down. Off into the distance. And this was the actual light. Sun had set. Here's the other female on there. So I did a bracket, took a bunch of frames. So we'll try and pull something out of that with HDR. So I'll keep shooting until the very last light. And yes, here is my backpack. So you could see it fully packed up. That is the First Light by Think Tank. And that's what I take with me on wildlife. Here's the 600, 2 R3s. I have an R5 in the lid, 24 to 105, 100 to 500 extenders. And then the laptop goes in the front pocket. Panning is always fun. There is a setting on your camera fact, I could talk about that right now while I'm thinking of it. Stop the screen share. Here we go. So on your cameras, especially Canon, you have 3 stabilization options: mode 1, mode 2, and mode 3. So when stabilization is active, mode 1 is your general stabilization to keep everything nice and steady and smooth. And 2 is for panning. So that photograph that I showed you. So it minimizes any up and down shake, but allows you to pan and be steady to track the subject and capture the image. Option 3 is image stabilization is off until you engage the shutter and actually take the photograph. Then image stabilization kicks in right before. So while speaking on image stabilization, if you're going to be photographing birds in flight at an extremely fast frame rate, so this will shoot 20 frames per second, and at an extremely fast frame rate and shutter speed with image stabilization engaged, it is possible that you're going to catch quite a few images in those 20 frames. You might get 2 or 3 that look slightly soft, and that's because the actual frame rate and shutter are capturing that micro movement of the floating element to help stabilize the image. So my general rule of thumb is, if I'm going to be shooting on a support like a gimbal like this, anything above 1/1600th of a second, I turn image stabilization off. Or anything above 10 frames per second, I turn it off, because this rig is going to keep me stabilized. I could pan, zoom, really good. Same thing handheld. If I'm going to be shooting at 4,000, 3,200, anything above 2,000th of a second, the image stabilization is off. So I get all of those frames are tack sharp and usable. Right. All right. Pete, everybody still there? Kind of feel like I'm in a vacuum talking to myself. Dan, you still there?
Yes, we are here. I think you answered most of the questions and most of the things people wanted to know. So, you know, everything's been smooth.
Workflow backing up is incredibly important. You invest a lot of time and effort and expense in capturing photographs. So kind of operate on that 3-2-1 backup, 3 copies of your media in 2 different places and 1 offsite. You know,
What do you do for your offsite? That was what I was actually just going to ask you, actually.
What my offsite is?
Yeah.
Yep. So I've been using Backblaze
Okay.
forever and a day. And Backblaze, I've got to have terabytes of information. So I've been using Backblaze probably since 2010, 11. So for me, $299 a year, it's worth it. And as long as you keep your drives, you know, let me engage this.
And Backblaze has a way that you can back up from a hard drive directly to it. It has a whole process to automate that though, right?
It runs in the back. You could set it on a timer. Mine is set to constantly. So we have 3 workstations in our home studio, plus 2 laptops. My 2 workstations have the G-Tech RAIDs, everything connected to it, direct connect, which goes to here we have a NAS, network area storage device, but my primary drives that are all connected go to Backblaze every day, constantly are running in the background. Now, what's nice about Backblaze is if we were in Africa and a client from 2007 and said, hey, can you send me this file? Because it does happen occasionally. We could go right to Backblaze. You could drill down to one specific file and pull it over onto your phone. There is a Backblaze app for your phone.
Okay.
So it works for me. There's other solutions out there, but knock on wood, every time I've had to use it, it's been great. I will tell one horror story. I format one, you know, partially, I think one of the reasons I've had such good luck with all of our memory cards is about once a month, I do a hard format on them. meaning completely erase them, not just formatting in the camera, but completely wipe them clean. Because when you format in camera, you're just kind of putting a sheet over everything. All that data is still there until it is written over again. So if I format this 256 gigabyte, oh no, this is a 64 gigabyte card in camera, and I put it in for image recovery, I can recover everything on there until I shoot over that information right over it. So in camera deleting, not hard formatting these cards often enough is where you'll run into challenges with corruption. By having a good, again, maintenance and workflow on your memory cards, they'll serve you a long time very well.
Yep.
So my horror story is I don't multitask very well. So I had a 16 terabyte G-Tech RAID plugged in, and I'm on the phone, and it's my time to do maintenance on the cards. I'm wiping the cards. Well, I accidentally wiped it's actually 24 terabyte G-Tech. And I started to get a cold sweat and panic, and I'm like, oh, Backblaze, awesome. So while the data, I have all the files backed up on another, I do these kicker drives where I just put them in, download, and put it away, right? But my file structure isn't there. My edits aren't there. All the Lightroom catalogs aren't there. So I just said, oh, went to Backblaze, ordered a recovery, and they sent me 4 terabyte SSD drives. Now you could do it online, but that would just take forever. So they FedExed them to me. I got the drives, and within a matter of 2 days, I had the entire file structure rebuilt, re-downloaded. And if you choose, you could keep those drives for a fee, or if you send them back within the 30-day period, there's no charge.
Okay.
So it's super convenient because once you have your file structure and everything intact, you're used to that. And to have to manually rebuild that would just be a mountain of time.
Yep.
So it's always good to have a backup plan in place, even for your home photos and your family photos. Those are really so important because that's becoming your digital archive. People don't have the shoebox full of photos anymore.
Yep. I keep a copy on a hard drive in my parents' house across the state.
Yeah, you have to. Even if you're just using your phone with photos, back that up,
Yep. All right. Well, that was wonderful, Bob. I think I speak for everybody here when we say thank you, and we're looking forward to next time. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts? Just get out there, go for a walk with your camera, take photographs, practice, enjoy nature and wildlife. It's all around you. Enjoy people and friends. Use your camera as a passport to take you places that you might not go to just on your own.
Awesome.
And I hope to see some of you guys that are out there on an adventure with us. We got lots more coming in 2024. We're planning a trip to Alaska to photograph coastal bears during the salmon run. So that'll be in 2024, and probably another safari in 2025.
All right. Well, stay tuned to the event space, and we will make sure to have you back there, and we'll chronicle your journeys here again.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it. Thanks, Danny.
Yep. Thanks to B&H for this opportunity, and everyone have a good night.